Hello, hello, hello. You have tuned in to the Cut to Scene podcast, and I am Aditya Vijaykumar. And
I am Devansh Chaudhary, and what we intend to do is try and just view content, go back and try and see the context in which it was set, analyze it, give our opinions, and just a bit of casual banter. So that is the purpose. I
देखो
am
जो देना
Devansh. I love poetry, theater, and films. Aspire to be a screenwriter someday, inshallah. So most of my views might circulate around the story of how the story is constructed and maybe the theatric or the drama aspects of it.
I am Aditya. I am a PhD student. I'm pursuing my PhD in astrophysics, but that's not the only thing I do. I also do theater on the side. I act, I direct. I recently turned director, and I watch movies. I had a goal of watching at least 2 movies a week last year, which I completed. But this year I've not been able to do much. But yes, as Devansh mentioned, while looking at a movie, I look at the cinematic aspects of it more than the story, which is a weird thing to say because you can't really decouple them. But my attention mostly goes to the cinematography, the editing, the sound design, and things like that. I mean, of course, we are not trained in films. We are really very amateur, and this is just an attempt to even read more, watch more, and become better at analyzing films and looking at cinema. Yes.
For the first episode, what we were thinking was which movie should we speak about, and then it so happened that we chanced upon the portrait of a lady on fire, and so we decided to probably talk about that. Just a sort of a disclaimer before we go ahead. There is a strong belief between the two of us that all movies deserve to be watched, and so you might find references that you might find obnoxious because we might be referring to so-called masala movies, but then because of our belief, we do not treat masala the way it is generally seen.
I would say at least amongst the people that I interact with, I feel it's oft misunderstood. It's not given its due, and that's probably because there are a certain set of the so-called masala slash mainstream films which are genuinely bad. But my stand on that has always been that not all art films are also good. The so-called passive cinema, if there is a lot of shit out there which we don't even chance upon. So it's the argument is really that in every genre of cinema there will be the good and the bad, and it is unfair to judge that class or that genre of cinema just based on just one movie or some movies which grow more popular than the others.
Correct.
Yes, so I think that is my argument. And for example, and I also think that a lot of the current day filmmakers who the new crop or in Indian cinema and especially Hindi cinema, the new crop is heavily influenced by masala or
Mhm.
the mainstream influences. If you look at any popular director of the current days,
Mhm.
Nabab Banerjee, Anurag Kashyap, Zoya Akhtar, and Vikramaditya Motwani,
Honorable mention to Vasan Bala.
Vasan Wala.
Yeah,
Oh my God. So, I mean,
yeah.
Vasan Wala's Mat Ko Dar Nahi Hota is like the epitome of
It's a tribute to the
masala.
masala
It is
genre. So
literally
yeah.
a tribute to the B grade. And it was screened at the Midnight Madness section in the Toronto International Film Festival,
Yes.
which is in fact meant for B grade films.
Received
So,
a standing ovation and won the Midnight Madness Award. So yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I think it's pretty unfair to just judge these so-called mainstream films by just saying, oh, they're mainstream. There's no content in them because I think there's a lot of content in them. And the thing and the point I was making is that even films like Gangs of Wasseypur or even what like Shanghai or all these films which we consider to be the new crop of Indian cinema are heavily influenced by masala references,
Right.
especially Gangs of Wasseypur. I mean, it is masala all along. Look
So
at the
if you,
last scene of
yeah,
Gangs of Wasseypur. I mean, who would have like who dies like that?
that's
I
slightly
mean,
extravagant. I mean, I'm sure
yeah,
even Anurag Kashyap is not on board with that scene. But
yeah.
okay. but yeah, whatever. I mean, we get the point across, right? That
Yeah, exactly.
what you consider art or what you consider indie and you consider maybe super cool also has masala, and so that needs to be rightly acknowledged to be so.
One
Uh,
small point that I
yeah.
have to make before proceeding is that the reason why a lot of, for example, take all of Quentin Tarantino's films,
Mhm.
they pay tribute to the mainstream genre
Right.
while also being artistically very, very nice. But they pay tribute to it and they derive themselves from it. For example, all of Tarantino's recent films, starting from Inglourious Basterds, have been
Mhm.
retellings of history. And
Right.
those retellings have been told in a very popular manner, in the sense they've been told with a lot of references that would otherwise, if it was not Quentin Tarantino
Mhm.
making it, would be considered mainstream.
Right.
And it's 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 also basically there's a sociological context behind it, and which I don't think a lot of people appreciate.
Right. So if all
Yes.
of writing is rewriting and all of watching, all of content creation is just recreating content that is already there, then well, then it comes down to the way you're creating it and the way you're writing probably is what we're trying to say. Okay, so good.
Hmm.
Just to give a brief context about our backgrounds, V is Mallu.
Yeah.
I am, and he has lived in Pune for a huge chunk of life. I am a Marwadi who has lived in Calcutta for a huge chunk of my life, and then we have spent a lot of time in Bits Pilani, and that's where we got to know each other. So yeah, just letting it out there so that in case we use any references of that sort, or just so that you know where we come from, because a lot of views might relate with that. So yeah,
Can I just read out the summary from Google?
sure.
Okay, so portrait of a lady on fire. Portrait de la jeune fille en feu. I practiced this last night. So the setting is France, 1770. Marianne, a painter, is commissioned to do the wedding portrait of Eloise, a young woman who has just left the convent. Eloise is a reluctant bride to be, and Marianne must paint her without her knowing. She observes her day by day to paint her secretly. So this is the summary of the film as given on Google. I think this is the IMDb.
I think this is the summary of the first 1.5 acts of the film, but okay.
Yeah, exactly. That it is literally that. So
Yeah.
I I I actually like the summary a lot because it does not give away anything.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
that's the question that just crept into my mind. Are we making this spoiler free or are we giving a spoiler alert? But I
No
think we'll have
spoilers.
to give a spoiler alert, yeah,
Yeah.
because there's no point otherwise discussing it. So yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Let's start with
Yeah, let's start with the broad thoughts on the film. Okay,
right.
go ahead. What did you think of the film?
Okay, so first of all, just as a tribute to Sucharita, it's women telling women stories. So a good move there. Such stories are needed, I feel, and I liked it a lot. The constant comparison that I was drawing in my head, and this not to bias you, but it was constantly about Call Me by Your Name, and setting it in, and the movie is set in the 17th century, I think, uh,
Uh, 18th,
near that timeline,
18th century, 17th,
18th
17th.
century, yeah. And so, and the language used generally is French. So it's a French movie. So I really loved it because of the following points. One is that when we talk about a female centric movie, it genuinely is female centric. There are men only in 3 scenes in the movie, and even then, even they do not play like a pivotal role. But at the same time, you feel the constant hand of the patriarchy all over the plot. I mean, you know the women are where they are and they're doing what they're doing because there is a constant pressure from the patriarchy. Uh, Another thing is that the movie is surprisingly silent. It films desire. It's trying to portray love and desire, and but it does so in a very silent way. It's not I Okay, this is where we contradict. I feel it's not very dialogue heavy, whereas I think you'd get a contrasting opinion from V. But So I felt that, and there are 2 points in the movie where music is used, background score is used, and very rightly so and very aptly. So yeah, so I just found it very very beautiful. Every frame of a painting of the movie, in going with the theme of the movie, is like a painting. Um and yeah, so those are my starting thoughts.
Okay, so I'll go ahead. I really thought it was a very very well made film. Let me start with the fact that women telling women stories is like very very obvious in right from the the way the film is written, the plot and the casting, and everything that it seeks to put across. So, for example, as you rightly said, there are only men in like a couple of three scenes, none important characters. So that is the first thing about the movie that jarred me. The second thing about the movie that jarred me is the silence, which I really did not appreciate at the start. I thought it was not a feature. I thought it was a bug in the whole thing, and not until towards the end did I realize the reason why the music was not used. So basically, I think there are sounds of the landscape, meaning the sounds of the sea, which we should come to in a bit because the surrounding is the sea. So there are sounds of the sea and there are sounds of maybe the fireplace, but that's it. There is not many other sounds used. No, not a lot of ambient sounds also in the film. But apart from that, like the proper score comes in two very pivotal scenes. Three, if you count the piano scene at the start,
Right.
and but so there's the scene where the character of Marianne and Heloise, Marianne is playing a song for Heloise on the piano. That is actually the scene where they sort of bond for the first time, where you see a spark. The second
And where you
scene,
actually see a fire in between the two, like
yeah,
literally.
yeah, and then the second scene is the one where the idea of the portrait of the lady on fire comes. The scene where there is this a cappella singing going on, which I thought I have been listening to that track for like the last week, and the movie ends with a very long piano solo. I hope that was piano. But
It's
basically
an orchestra piece which
yeah,
is
it's like a
which is themed on the initial piano piece that he referred to.
yeah, yeah, right. So, so so this is, I guess, one more lesson that I got from the film, which I have also believed in the past, is never leave a movie halfway, because you will get really biased opinions about the film in your own head if you do that. So that's one. Of course, the acting. So the Marianne, the painter, is played by I forgot her name, Noemi Merlan. I am not sure that's how it's pronounced, but the lady whose portrait is being made, that's Eloise in this case, is being played by Adele Haenel. And I only after watching the film did I realize that I have actually watched her in another film, and it's called 120 BPM. Again, it's a French film. It's set in Paris. It's about the AIDS. It's about the life of a AIDS infected person in Paris. It's a very very nice watch. It's very different from this film in its pacing, in its setting, etc. etc. And so I thought the acting was fantastic, even especially from Adele Haenel. And I love the minimalism of the film in some places. The I did think that it was overly minimalistic in a few places. I also thought the editing was kind of patchy and inconsistent in parts. I
Hmm.
thought the camera work was something that I do not personally like, and I did not appreciate given the context. But even apart from these, I'm nitpicking only because there's only things to nitpick about the film. There is not a lot to say artistically, uh, which is artistically wrong about the film. And of course, it's it's a film that speaks to you, meaning it says, it has something to say, it has something very concrete to say. So yeah, those are my long thoughts about the film. But yeah,
Yeah, like
yeah,
5 cents or something.
yeah.
All right. So moving on, I interestingly loved Noemi's, that is Marianne's acting more, because so I was listening to this podcast today and I use a lot of support to gain my views, right? So I was like, as in gain more perspective. So I was listening to this podcast where the three of them were there, and it was an acting podcast, and the director Celine. All the links that we refer to would be linked here, would be
Linked on
mentioned.
the notes.
It's called Back to One,
Okay.
Actors on Acting, right?
Mhm.
So essentially, and they admitted that the movie is it's heavily based on glances, and it works a lot on that. And then so because of that, and Noemi isn't a natural painter. They got another painter who,
Yeah.
like a professional painter, to paint the portraits. So I just felt those scenes were brilliantly done because the way she was looking at Adele, and she had me confused at points where I was like, is she looking for the sake of the painting, or is she looking because of what she's feeling at that point of time? So so that I felt was very, very nice. Um, the third actress has also done a fantastic job in my opinion. Luana Bajrami, who
Yeah.
plays Sophie,
Mhm.
who's the
So
housemaid.
yeah, right. She's the
Yeah,
housemaid of the really big castle type house that
right.
Eloise lives in.
So
Yeah.
it's actually a 1700 castle which is abandoned
Uh-huh.
currently, and
Right.
so yeah. Anyways, so moving back to the film, we'll talk about the starting scene and the sea, because that plays out. I feel that, and in fact, I realized this in my second watch, that I think that the sea is more than just the sea, and it's actually. So I have like one theory, but yeah. So what are your views on the sea? That how the movie has used the sea?
To be honest, I didn't think of it much on my just after I watched.
Mhm.
It's only now, meaning today, that I sort of think that the sea is not just the sea. I mean, there's a reason why it's set on an island and not so the movie is set on an island which is covered on all the sides uh, by water, and in most of the times it we sort of think that they are the only people on that island.
Right.
So I sort of got a sense of two lovers stranded on an island kind of
Hmm.
feel. So yeah, so that is one reason, and I really do not know. I have not really thought about why the sea was used in the movie.
Right.
What are your
So,
thoughts?
okay, so I have a couple of examples. So essentially, in the start of the movie, we see Marianne riding a boat, and she's essentially heading to the island, right? And this her canvas falls into the sea, and she follows it just to retrieve it. So, first of all, one thing that I love about the movie is how rich and how saturated all frames are. So they're very rich colors. Marianne is always seen in a very rich reddish brown dress, and Eloise is always seen in a blue dress, which is like sort of cold, which sort of gets warmer with the movie. The blue gets warmer with the movie as Eloy realizes, or so to say, feels love, is what I see. And this color thing is something that I've gotten into after I've watched Her, because that movie has a strong theme of colors, and there is a YouTube video around it. We could link that too. But anyways, so yeah, so my notes were about, first of all, they were about the vivid colors. Um, and then then I felt that the sea is a metaphor here for uh, the feeling of love. Why? Because uh, Noemi, as a painter, and this also goes with the popular theory that to create art you must fall in love. I mean, love and art are strongly correlated. So Noemi, as a painter, when she's approaching the island, is goes into the sea, and she's coming from the sea, in fact. So she's coming from a place of love. Adele, I mean Eloy, early on in the movie admits that she has always dreamt of running to the sea, and then she says that she wants to bathe in the sea. And when asked whether she knows how to swim or not, she says, "I don't know, because I've never tried. So I'll only know when I try it out." And she finally does try it out when Marianne tells her that it's her last day there and she's leaving because the first draft of the painting, so to say, is ready. Uh, and then Alois says that, okay, I think I'll take a bath right now. And she goes into the sea and she disappears. Like she keeps walking into the sea till she disappears amidst the waves. She comes back, she's cold, she's trembling, and then she asks Marianne that, "Did you see me there? And do you think I can swim?" In fact, Marianne asks her first, but whatever. And Marianne says, "Probably not, but you can float quite well. I mean, you can at least float." After which we probably see Alois's first smile in the movie, which
That's
comes
right.
in like 40-45 minutes into the movie.
Probably even later.
Yeah, probably later. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So, point being that there is another scene where the maid tells, they find out that the maid is pregnant, and this is an attempt to abort the kid, wherein they get her to run on a beach between the two, and so you can see the sea behind her, and what I felt about that scene was that, and it was very, very surprising that ever since they found out about the pregnancy and all the talk around pregnancy, there was no mention of the father of the kid. There was no and I find this very, very unique when it comes to films, because there always is either a conflict, either a subplot, or something or the other around the father. But here there was no mention of that. It was just one line whether she wants to keep the kid or not, and she said no. And then
Yeah.
they moved to these techniques that they're trying to work out, right? So essentially, what I made out of that running on the beach scene was that this maid has been living here for 3 years. As we find out, the countess, the owner of the castle, isn't a very, very, so to say, a very lovely lady or whatever, a very warm lady, is the vibe that I got. And she hasn't interacted with Eloy. So I sort of figured that Sophie, the maid, is sort of a lonely person, and then this sort of warmth between with two other ladies that she's receiving. This is like sort of the first time that she's receiving this, or sort of the rise of love in her life. So that is why you see the sea in the background, which is sort of approaching her. Probably this is reading
Wow.
too deep into it, but I don't know.
No, I,
That
I
is
think
what
I
I
think it's
felt.
perfectly acceptable. I mean, I've not heard this from you before this, so I
Mhm.
think it's a perfectly acceptable analogy. Regarding your point that she feels a sense of belonging with the two women, I think that's right because if you remember, there is the scene where they're sitting around the table and playing cards, I think,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that's when we see all the three of them
Right.
really laughing, right?
Right.
Laughing
Right.
and being naughty, mischievous, etc.
Uh,
And and you're right. You don't see Sophie, the maid, like that at any point in the movie, in the rest of the film. Also, because there she's always this subservient lady
mhm.
who is doing her job,
Mhm.
and whereas in that one scene, there's like this immense sense of belonging to that.
Right.
Is that the scene after which they discuss the what do you say the
Yeah,
Orpheus?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
story of Eurydice. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Which
So
which
there
I
there are a couple of scenes after that where they discuss that.
Mhm. Yeah, so I thought, I mean, that was a very nice discussion because the Orpheus and Eurydice story is a very, I mean, I didn't know of the story till about 2 months ago, when someone so there's this artist called Regina Spektor,
Mhm.
and she has done a song about this, which one of my friends introduced me to, and about the story of Orpheus and Eurydice, and and I thought it. I mean, at first when my friend narrated that story to me, I didn't think of it as a very deep story. I just thought so. The story goes that I mean, there's a lot of context to the story,
Just
but
a
the
quick
point is,
summary would be,
yeah, the quick summary is that Orpheus goes in. So Eurydice has died. Orpheus and Eurydice were lovers, and Eurydice has died. So Orpheus now wants to get her back, and he goes to Hades, to
Mhm.
the god of the underworld, to get back his wife.
So the gods are impressed by his story. They
Yeah,
get very sentient, and they
and
allow him to take her back
yes.
on one condition.
Yeah, and the condition is that while he goes back, while he walks to the earth, he should not look back. Uh, and uh, and the point is that when he is almost about to get to the earth, he sort of is so overcome by the want of seeing Eurydice behind him that he does look back, and there he sees Eurydice standing in all her beautiful glory. But because the gods had told him not to look back, the moment he looks at Eurydice, she just descends into the underworld again. Uh, so there are a lot. I mean, I didn't know that the story had so much depth because there are a lot of versions. So what do you think? Why did your Orpheus look back?
I feel I subscribe to Marianne's philosophy, wherein she says that probably he looks back because he prefers her memory over her presence. So
Yeah,
he makes the poet's choice. And I,
yeah,
being like the person I am, I would also prefer the poet's choice. But
yeah.
so yeah, so I subscribe to that ideology. But what do you think?
Yeah, I sort of I saw that I didn't think it was so deep the story itself, but I sort of agree with Banyan too because he made the poet's choice.
Yeah,
I don't know what choice I would have made. That's a very weird
right.
question to
So
ask myself.
Helois's theory to this, very interestingly, is that
Yeah.
maybe she called out to him,
Mhm.
and that's why he turned. And this is in like this is a foreshadowing of what happens later in the movie near the end, wherein Marianne is exiting the house and Eloy calls her out, and then we see the descending figure of Eloy, wherein like the figure that Marianne has already seen twice, like in the movie already. So
Yeah.
yeah,
In her wedding gown, basically.
right, right,
Yeah.
right.
A white
So
wedding gown.
there are a couple of points, very interesting points that I saw today, wherein I felt that they were foreshadowing the story. So there is this one point where this one has agreed, Eloy has agreed to pose for her. This is in the second half, so to say, and she has agreed to pose for her, and then she asks if Marianne paints nude photos, and then she says of women, yes, and then she asks what about males, and then she says without understanding so yeah, I do it in secret because without understanding the male anatomy we miss out on the greater subjects. So I do it in secret, it's tolerated. So it's tolerated, but it is frowned upon, so she also does it in secret. I felt this is also a nod towards their lesbian relationship, because it's tolerated. I mean, if you do it in secret, but it's frowned upon at the same time. And
Right.
then if you do not, without understanding that, you are missing out on the greater subject that is love.
Right.
So if you completely sort of blind yourself towards homosexual relationships, you miss out on the bigger point of love. So I
Right.
just felt that was a very nice parallel that maybe they were drawing. I don't know.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, you sort of can relate a lot of things that happen in the first half of the film
Right.
to the later points. And yeah, what did you think about the scene where her skirt catches fire?
Oh, oh
Basically, the whole
God,
yeah,
I clapped.
yeah,
I clapped. So, in fact, like very interestingly, because the title itself reads in two ways if you insert punctuations, right?
hmm
It's either the portrait of a lady on fire or
hmm
it's portrait of a lady on fire,
hmm
both of which occur in the film,
yep,
right? So, so the moment she catches fire is very, very significant to me because fire is always like in this movie at least I always see fire as a symbolism for desire,
hmm
and and so in fact now since we have already come to this point, I noticed today that even in the beginning of the movie, when you see Marianne, she has got two frames. She has got two blank canvases,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yes,
Right. And
yes,
if you notice that very very beautiful scene where she's sitting sipping wine in front of the fire when she's
yes.
come back and she's drying herself out, she's sitting naked in front of the fire. There are these two frames, both are placed on each side of the fireplace.
Uh-huh.
So it's like you make one painting, then you go through this entire process of desire, and then you end up with the second painting,
Right,
which is just amazing. And
right.
like even I am realizing this right now.
Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't look, I didn't notice this in the film at all. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Coming back to this scene where her skirt catches fire, uh, it is sort of that moment in the film where love or desire has caught on to Eloise. It's not like it wasn't there, but now it's caught on, and even Marianne can see it evidently that it's there. And then it's a very jarry cut after that scene where Marianne tries to pull her up, and then they cut to them on the island.
Yes.
Wala scene. It's very
Yeah.
jarring.
Before we go into what happens after the scene, I would like to stop of what happens before the scene, where they go into this fire, this campfire kind of place
Sorority
where a
side
lot of
sort of a setting.
and this is where the jarriness of the no sounds, no background score gets broken because now they are singing, and it is if you notice it is like it's a monotonically
Right.
increased function of or in the sense the intensity of the music just keeps on increasing. At one point it just fades and the skirt catches fire, and it I mean I thought that piece was very very it was there was a lot of subtext in that, and you could see they're looking, the characters of Marianne and Lois were looking at each other all the time. There is a change in their expressions, there's a more confident expression, and the skirt catches fire, and that of course is to signify that that is the moment that their desire has reached the peak, so much so that Eloy's skirt catches fire because of the fire of desire. And I
Correct.
think the scene after that is where they kiss for the first time. Is that right?
Correct. Correct. They
Right? In the
cross.
cave.
Yeah, yeah,
In the
yeah,
cave.
yeah. And then they go to the cave, yeah, which is another
Yeah.
beautiful scene.
Yes.
Interestingly, so I was listening to another podcast, and the director was talking about the song, this a cappella song that was happening there. And so it's a Latin song that she wrote, inspired by, it's based on these lines by Nietzsche. And the lines read, just a sec.
By who?
Friedrich Nietzsche. I don't know how do you pronounce that name.
Sure.
Nietzsche. Yeah.
Frederick.
Okay. So what he says is the higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly.
Right.
And so she speaks extensively about how this has a lot of connotations. This has something to do with witch hunting also, because witches fly, and they were there around a fire, witches are burnt, they are lesbians, so, or like they are in love with the same gender, which is also considered to be sort of, I mean, it's anti-religion, so yeah, blasphemy is the word I was looking for. Anyways, so she has a lot of connotations around that, which I do not fully understand, to be very honest. But then another thing that I noticed is that so I, as I said, Marianne is always wearing red, and this one is always Eloy is always wearing blue. The combination of the two colors is purple, which is often referred to as the color of passion. Uh, so that is one thing. There is another scene where the maid is wearing yellow, and these three are there where they go for the abortion, and these three are primary colors, which give rise to all other colors. And then we see this extensive, beautiful scene of birthing, or abort,
Abort.
or not birth, yeah, there. And what I find particularly beautiful about that scene is that overhead shot when we are seeing the abortion happen, but she's holding the hand of a baby and she's
Yeah.
crying,
Yeah.
which is just amazing, which is just another
That
level.
yes, that's a very, very I mean it takes, I don't know, it's very interesting because that baby could really not have been in the scene.
Yeah.
Because and the I would really like to see if the baby was written into the script, or
I
it
am
was
dying for the
was
script, dude.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I don't know, because this seems like something that I would, for example, if I would do a play or I would, do a film myself, create a film, I would not think to write this in the script.
Right.
At least personally,
Right.
this would be, if such a thing happens to me, it would come in the middle of me thinking about the scene on set or on rehearsal. And that's why I would really love to see the script of this. Also, you mentioned that you don't understand the aspects of religion and whatnot in the film, which brings me to a slightly tangential point. Is that people always, in my opinion, people always think that you should read books on cinema to understand cinema, which is something I disagree with. I think you should read books, you should watch more stuff, you should experience the world more
Consume
to
more art. Huh.
cinema. It's not just consume more art, consume more things. It's
True.
just consume news,
Like go
consume
through more
like
experiences.
yeah, for example, if I mean the movie that we're going to talk about next, Soncharia, if you don't know about certain things,
Right.
as in the place, the
Right.
social
The
aspects,
time.
etc.,
The yeah.
you're not going to you really have no way that you can appreciate the film to its fullest. And of
Right.
course, some people might argue that you cannot appreciate art to its fullest ever, but I think you can always try, and you should try. Anyway, go ahead, please.
So one observation was that even the old portrait that the painter has left, like because he has smudged out the entire face area, when you zoom out of that portrait, even that painting in itself looks like the head is on fire. This is just a random observation. But
Okay.
one question that is sticking to me is that around 28 minutes into the movie, the maid goes to, and we have seen Marianne start painting. Like she has seen Eloy for the first time. She's sitting around the fire with all those papers where she's sketched the ear on some. She sketched some different parts of her on different papers, and she has started painting the canvas. She started painting the dress and everything. And Sophie, the maid, asks her if she has started painting, and she says no. So I don't really get that part. Why did she lie? Or did she lie? I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, a few things that I can think about is maybe she really didn't think that she had started, in the sense that she
Right.
didn't think that what she was doing was, I mean, maybe for her doing that was just preparation. It was
Hmm.
not the start of a finished product,
Right.
and
Right.
maybe that. And I think at least the second time she makes a painting, it's a labor of love.
Exactly. It
Yes,
looks more like Eloise and not
yeah,
a smudged over version of her.
right, right,
Uh, so that more looks more real, definitely.
yeah.
So in fact, she says right after the first one, Eloise, when she's reviewing it, she was like, and there's this exchange where Marianne says that there are ideas, there are connotations, there are techniques that go into this, and Eloise is like, is there no are there no feelings? And then she was like, feelings are just fleeting moments and they disappear. And then Eloy is like, no, some feelings are really deep and they stay.
Mhm.
So this I found very, very, very nice, wherein this exchange was going on, where it was pretty evident in the first half itself that Eloise is in love or is attracted to this person. In fact, if we talk about the piano scene, Eloise is continuously staring
Yes,
at Marianne while and there's so much tension there. Oh God.
yes,
Um,
and it's from what I remember, it's a shot taken from the back, as in you can
yeah.
only see their backs.
No, it's like
I,
this. It's a front shot.
yeah, but then I think
Yeah,
when it starts, it's at the back,
yeah.
right? And you can
Starting.
see like the small inch of distance that's between them is the tension. I
Right.
mean, it's literally the on-screen personification of the tension is the small distance between them. And
So I have been noticing this, that a lot of times when there is this sort of a tension, the person who has the feelings, their eyes continuously flutter from the eyes of the other person to the lips of the other person. So there's a constant flutter, and
Right, that's right. In this scene, Eloise actually looks at her, looks at her lips, looks at her, looks
yeah,
at her lips,
yeah,
looks at her
there's a
finger.
continuous this
Yeah,
thing, yeah,
yeah. And
and there's a
Marianne is actually does not even know
yeah,
about.
she's lost. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a movie. I have written in my notes that it's a movie of right angles because there are so many shots where the two characters are facing at right angles. That is just crazy to me. It says something about the dynamics between them. But so Marianne is busy playing the piano.
Wow, I did not notice that. I think that's a very interesting observation. Yes, and now that you say it, I also remember a lot of shots where there's this right
Yeah,
angle kind of
a
thing.
lot of them.
Yeah.
In fact, so I have another screenshot here wherein the first time that Eloise is allowed to go out alone, she goes to Mars, she comes back, and Marianne meets her, and Marianne asks her how it was.
Hmm.
She was like, I listened to music, I enjoyed myself, I met people, whatever, all of that. Uh, but I also felt your absence. And at this
Yeah.
point, Eloise is looking at Marianne just stares to her left, where this one is standing, and
Hmm.
then looks ahead and walks away without replying.
Hmm.
So so there's a lot of play with these right angles. Even the piano scene, when Eloise approaches her, she stands exactly at a right angle. So, anyways, so what I was saying is there is a lot of tension there, and so you see that Eloise is lost in her dreams because she's staring at the eyes, she's staring at the lips, and then she's just constantly like this fantasy world is building up inside of her, and at that very moment. Uh, Marianne says that, oh, it's good that you enjoy music because Milan is a city of music,
Yeah.
which
Yes.
just smashes into
Yeah.
this dream.
Okay. The context is that Milan is the place where she's supposed to be married off to. So she's supposed to be married off to a Milanese nobleman, and for that, I mean, that's the reason why her portrait is being painted in the first place.
Right.
Yeah.
And this once Eloise's mom has told Marianne to speak to her about Milan and convince her that it's a beautiful city. So yeah, I just found that very, very nice, wherein because by that time you also sort of start feeling that this girl Marianne also has something for Eloise.
Yep.
And the moment where the person knows that there is something between the two of them but still refuses to go into it is another cathartic bliss. So yeah.
I don't know. This rings very close to me at least. I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Like
So,
I can really relate to that because I think I've done this in the past. Anyway,
uh,
uh, so let's wrap things up. What do you think about the ending? Can I start by the way?
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So the end. I mean, so basically, what happens is that Marianne's job is done, and she just leaves the mansion and of course, they do their relationship does not see any end. Now, in almost like an epilogue to the film, there is this exhibition happening of Marianne's paintings, and she's there. And Marianne just shows people around. She sees that Eloise is actually there in that. She realizes that Eloise is actually there in that place where the exhibition is happening, and there's a concert happening apart from that. And so she goes into the concert hall, and and this is one more right angle shot, by the way. Goes, she sits on one
Ah,
of the booths,
yeah.
and on the opposite booth is Eloise, who's not really seen her, and
Ah,
she really does not see her at all.
yeah.
But so it's basically Marianne looking at Eloise and Eloise looking at the orchestra, which is basically forming a right angle. And we see the end of the film is basically the camera zooming in on Eloise's face, which goes from a normal expression to just intense sadness as a orchestra piece is playing in the background. And why is she going to intense sadness? Because she realizes that that piece is the same as the one that Marianne played to her on the piano. So though she's not noticing Marianne in that very hall, she starts crying and we I mean and holding on to her weeping just because she realizes that it's the same tune, which I thought was a brilliant way to end the movie. Because
And also because this also says a lot about the tune, because the tune, when initially it's described, is the coming of a storm,
yes,
right? So that's where it starts from. That's where Eloise starts noticing it and is starting to cry. And then the second part is the insects have noticed it, and the insects realize that a storm is coming. So the insects ka this thing starts, and that's when Eloise actually breaks down,
yep,
right? And then it goes into the coming of the storm finally.
Yep.
So that says a lot about the feelings of the character.
Yeah, I think it's one of the best endings I've seen in a film of
Yeah.
late. I really loved it, and especially one of the best endings in a so-called love story.
Oh,
I
of
just
course.
I just thought it was really really cathartic and a brilliant way to end the movie, because for me, movies that have a bad ending, I can appreciate whatever happened before the ending. One such example of such a movie is Florida Project, whose ending I hate. The last 30 seconds just spoiled the movie for me. The point is, after I watch a movie, I want that movie to stay with me, and I want the ending to be an escalated ending. You understand? I like it to be an epilogue instead of an ending, which which perfectly was satisfied with this film, and I thought it was one of the best endings that I've seen in some time.
Mhm.
Yep. But you had something to
So
say?
yeah, I have like a couple of things. Some lines that stick by me with this movie is, the first is when they're talking about the convent life, and she says equality is a pleasant feeling. Really struck me. Um, Second is when Alois is describing her situation, where she is forcefully being married off to a man she does not know, and this one instead can choose, sort of. Marianne says that she can sort of choose, and Alois says you can choose, and that's why you don't understand me. And
Mm-hmm.
then Marianne says that I understand you, but yeah, I mean, so that really stuck to me in a way. Another thing is that all the shots of the movie, they majorly had either, like, they were pretty symmetric, in the sense that the characters were generally in the center of the shot. Like, if it's covering one character, they'll be at the center. If it's covering the three characters, then Marianne would be sitting in the center, Eloise on her right, and the maid on her left on the dinner table. So, why I'm saying this is because when the first painting is shown to Eloise, is the first time Eloise actually crosses the frame. After she's done fighting with Marianne, she crosses the frame
Right.
to go fetch her mother. So that
Uh-huh.
was another point that sort of stuck. That this marks
That,
a conflict in the relationship,
yes.
uh, right? And apart from that, obviously the ending is amazing. I love it because, first of all, the acting. I mean, the brilliantly portrayed, because it's a very very long shot on that character's
Not
face.
fucking single dialogue
Yeah,
in that
and
scene. Right?
no dialogues, and it tells you the whole story again. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'll have to go back to the beginning, where so this one is, Marianne is teaching students how to paint. She is the subject of that painting, and she says, take time to look at me, uh, because, and that is symbolic of why she probably gets the second painting right, because
Mhm.
she has finally taken time to look at her. The second is, see how my hands are placed, and there is a lot of focus on the hands here, because there is a particular way she places her hands, which
Yep.
was not by the way the hands were placed in the first, in the painting that the other painter had made.
Right.
The hands were placed differently. So, yeah, I think the movie is sort of rewarding in that sense. The more you watch, the frequency of watches would give you more insights, I think, which is to say for any other brilliantly
Good film.
made film.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for any other good film. But yeah, it's just, uh, I mean, the catharsis of all of it is just something that really strikes me. While Call Me by Your Name was a more sort of the catharsis of a teenager. Even, oh, by the way, even Call Me by Your Name ends with a similar scene.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's
yeah,
right. The
he
call.
cries. He
Yeah, the call.
cries
Yep.
in front of the bonfire. very interesting. I hadn't thought of that. But even there, the person who's the protagonist, so to say, I'm not like dividing into protagonists or whatever, but I'm saying that the person who's fallen for in love uh, is the younger one, is the less experienced one, is the one who is being closed off, while the other person is more open, so to say. Anyways, by the end of the movie, we see that at least Marianne's costume has changed from being the bright red that she generally wore to a cold blue, which again says something to me. Um, so yeah, these are our our 50 cents about about the movie.
So thank you for tuning in, listeners. We are here. Do tell us what you like about this podcast and what you don't about this episode, and do recommend movies that you would like us to cover in the forthcoming episodes.
You can find me at also goes by V on Twitter, and you can find Devansh at Devnash.
Devnash on Twitter and Insta.
Yeah, and we'll put up some links in the show notes. Please feel free to check them out. Give us feedback. It's really important for us to hear back from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.